So next we're going to move on to the model. The model is a really critical part in this adaptive management program. So the PAMF model is used to facilitate this systematic learning process, and is also what we generate guidance with for each management unit. So we have a short animation that we want to show, and then we're going to have Christine available to answer all of your model related questions. So if you want to understand more about the technical aspects of PAMF, this is kind of a great opportunity because Christine is the one who designed all of this.
Non-native Phragmites australis, or common reed, is invasive in the Great Lakes Basin, and controlling it can be expensive. Because it often isn't clear what management approaches will succeed, many managers are interested in science-based decision support. The Phragmites Adaptive Management Framework, or PAMF, invites Phragmites managers to contribute to and benefit from collective learning. At the core of the program is a mathematical model that weighs the same factors that you might consider when managing Phragmites, trade-offs between efficacy, uncertainty, and cost. It draws on experience and data from participants across the basin to determine the best value guidance for each management unit. Each complete set of reports that you upload to the PAMF Web Hub teaches the model about Phragmites' response to management. Monitoring reports track the severity of each Phragmites invasion through time. Management reports tell the model what was done and how much it cost. Together, these reports show the model how Phragmites in your management unit responded to the actions you carried out. PAMF's model keeps track of what is known about management outcomes by categorizing invasions into 6 states, increasing in severity from 1 to 6. And predicting how likely an invasion is to transition from one state to another after management. Imagine that you have a highly invaded management unit in state 6 and plan to control it using management combination A. Before you take action, the model predicts that your unit is 40% likely to improve to state 4, 20% likely to improve to state 3, and 10% likely to end up in another state. After managing, you see the unit's infestation improve to state 3. The model responds by increasing its prediction that similar units managed the same way will improve to state 3, and reducing predictions that they will transition to any other state. As you and others file reports, you add to the pool of data that informs the model's predictions. Now, suppose you have another combination available. The model predicts that combination B is 40% likely to improve your unit's infestation to state 2, 20% likely to improve it to state 3, and 10% likely to result in another state. Since combination B is more likely to improve your unit to a less invaded state, the model will recommend combination B over combination A, provided that it isn't too expensive. As the model collects data about cost and effectiveness of each of PAMF's 16 combinations, its guidance changes to reflect the best information available. You make this happen. The model is a critical part of the adaptive management process and reduces the uncertainty surrounding Phragmites management throughout the Great Lakes Basin. Your data drive the collective learning process and help reduce the spread of invasive Phragmites.
And if you want to rewatch that, that is also available on the Great Lakes Phragmites Collaborative website, or also on the Web Hub as well. So before we take questions, we do have one knowledge check. So true or false, all management data, regardless of if it follows one of the 16 management combinations, will contribute to the model. Go ahead and type your answer into the chat box. Okay, Patrick, what does everyone think?
We're getting pretty much unanimous trues.
Well, regardless of what you put, you're right, because the answer is a little bit more complicated than that. And Christina's going to kind of walk us through why that is.
Yeah, so There are a couple of different parts to the model. There's the part that keeps track of how effective each management combination turns out to be. And then there's also an optimization step that finds the best value PAMF combination for each management unit. So if you end up not following a PAMF combination, and that's totally understandable, right? Especially this year, if you can't get out to some of your management units and you end up not doing a PAMF combination, what would happen is that that would not be able to update the part of the model that talks about how effective your management was, because we run those on state and transition models, and we only have those models for PAMF combinations. But we can use that data to figure out what combinations we can recommend. And the reason that we do that is that we don't want to recommend combinations that people can't use. So what we do is we take the guidance that went out and we compare what was actually done on the units. And if we see, for example, that there's a PAMF combination that is getting recommended a lot, but nobody's using it, we make sure to kind of down-regulate that recommendation and make that appear less, because it's just something that, for whatever reason, doesn't appear to be useful to people. So we do use that, all of the information. If you are unable to do a PAMF combination, that's fine. We can still use all of the information you can give us. So please do keep filling out those reports.
Great. Thanks, Christine. Now, this is kind of the time where we're opening up for questions. If you have any questions about the technical side of PAMF, which there's a lot to it, that animation just gave you a nice little overview of it, go ahead and type them in the chat box. Patrick, do you have any questions for Christine at this time?
I have a question, but it might not be directly related. Leslie asks, how many enrolled sites are in water depth from 1 to 6 feet using physical cutting to drown only, and herbicide not licensed?
So we do have quite a few sites enrolled that are in standing water. When you enroll a site, you're going to be able to indicate whether you have the ability to do any sort of physical cutting methods, or if you're able to cut underwater, or if you're able to control the water levels. And you may get a combination from the PAMF model then that recommends that you go ahead and you implement cutting underwater. And you can also tell us if you're not able to apply herbicides as well, because we don't want to recommend a combination that you're not able to implement. And all of that is taken into consideration by the PAMF model as well. So if you tell us, hey, we're in Ontario, our sites are over water, we can't apply herbicides, that's no problem. We're not going to recommend an herbicide combination to you. Any other questions?
Yeah, I've got a question from Mike. Does it affect the model when I edit my reports?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Thank you. So the way that we run the model is that we make a copy of the database behind the web hub every year before the model run, and we run the model off of that snapshot of the database. So we do that after the deadline, so probably in early August. So any editing that you do up until that point, the model is never going to see. So if you have incomplete reports or you need to go back and fix something, feel free to do that as much as you need to, because we only work off of the snapshot after the deadline passes. If you were to go back and edit a report that was submitted from a previous year, that's a little bit more complicated, because every update that we do in the model is based on the results of the last one. And we want to prevent having contradictory information from previous years than what we actually saw when the model was run. So I believe that at some point the reports are locked from monitoring.
Yeah,
Sam, do
they're
you remember?
Sorry, they're going to be locked, yeah, after the model data is all pulled. So after we pull all of the data to run the model, all the previous reports will be locked. Any other questions, Patrick, or anything to follow up on that, Christine?
We have an additional question from Andrea. Can we contribute monitoring data that doesn't follow the specific PAMF protocol by only management unit density data?
You absolutely can. We do have a little bit more trouble using that because in the state and transition models that we use to figure out which combinations are more effective than others, we define the states using both the percent establishment and the stem density data. So if we have a report that only has stem density, we don't know what the state is. So we can't really describe that unit very well, and we're not able to use that information, unfortunately. And if you have incomplete percent establishment or density data, that also makes it harder for us to get guidance to you, because again, we don't have a good enough picture of what your management unit looks like to be able to give you any kind of confident recommendations.
And it looks like Andrea also asked, can we contribute previous year's data to the model?
So technically, yes. It would be a little bit difficult to incorporate it, again, because of the way that the model is an iterative process. Every understanding that we have of how well the combinations work is based off of every previous year's understanding. So in order to incorporate that information, we would have to go back to that previous year that the new data came in for and rerun the model for every subsequent year so that we incorporate the information where it needs to be and have it impact every subsequent year where it needs to go, which isn't to say it's impossible, it's just somewhat complicated, and we may not do that unless there's a lot of previous year's data.
Any other questions, Patrick?
Yeah, we have an additional question. I wasn't able to get out to clear several of my units during the dormant phase, so I don't think I'll be implementing a PAMF combination on those units this year. Should I still fill out the management reports?
Yeah, that's a good question, and it is absolutely useful and helpful for you to fill out the management reports, maybe for your own records, but also that helps us to understand which combinations are and are not useful in the real world, and that helps us figure out what we should be recommending to participants, because we don't want to recommend something that sounds really great on paper and that doesn't work for you. So that information is very useful to us and to you as well.
Oh, and I actually got a question sent to me. The question is, how do you use cost data?
Yeah, that's a really great question, and that's something we've been building in for a little while now. We ask for voluntary cost data because that is part of our optimization, where we figure out what we should be recommending. And the way that works is we're not just recommending the most effective combinations, right? Because we could tell you, like, go out and glyphosate with a helicopter and it'll work really well, but it's really, really expensive. So instead, what we do is we balance what we know about effectiveness against cost. And right now we have a cost ranking of what actions we think are more expensive than others. But if we are able to tighten that down, we'll be able to better balance the effectiveness versus the cost and really give you better value recommendations. So that's what we use the cost data for.
Any other questions for Christine, Patrick?
Doesn't seem like there's any more questions, but feel free to add questions to the chat as we continue.
Great, thanks a lot, Christine, for providing that insight.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I'm just switching back to my normal presentation real quick. Okay, So now we're going to talk about guidance. And guidance is one of the main benefits of participating in PAMF. So the model is going to run each August, and then by mid-August, you're going to receive the guidance that the model recommends is going to, or the model predicts is going to have the greatest reduction in your Phragmites at your specific management unit at the lowest cost. The fourth step in the PAMF participant cycle is receiving management guidance. Each August, PAMF participants receive management guidance that is customized to each of the management units they have enrolled in the program. Management guidance is a direct output of the PAMF model and is covered in Chapter 3 of the PAMF Participant Guide. Before we explore the guidance, it's helpful to learn a little bit more about why guidance is structured the way it is. More specifically, why are we basing our guidance around the seasonal growth patterns of Phragmites? Phragmites has 3 biological phases: translocating, dormant, and growing. PAMF uses these 3 phases for planning management actions because different actions work better during each phase. The translocating phase occurs from late summer to mid-fall. The exact timing of this phase changes from year to year and also depends on where you are in the Great Lakes Basin, which is true for all the other phases as well. During this phase, the plant reduces its growth and begins moving or translocating the photosynthetic sugars to the rhizomes below ground. This is an ideal time to apply herbicide because they're more likely to be transported below ground to the rhizomes. You can tell a Phragmites patch is beginning to translocate when the seed heads mature and the translocation is fully underway, when the leaves begin to yellow and the inflorescences look fluffy. The dormant phase is the period from late fall to mid-spring when the above ground stems have died off, as you can see in this picture, and the below ground rhizomes are mostly inactive. Phragmites regrows from rhizomes each year, although the dead stems from past years can remain standing for another couple of seasons. The dormant phase is a good time to clear the old biomass, which can improve the efficiency of next year's management actions. You will know your management unit is in the dormant phase when all of the above ground tissue is brown. The growing phase is the period from late spring through midsummer when the plants are green and actively growing, as shown in the picture on the right. This is a great time to implement management actions like flooding because the emerging shoots are more easily drowned and thus prevented from further growth. You'll know the growing phase is starting when you see new shoots emerging and will continue to grow until the flowers develop and mature. PAMF tracks 16 management combinations. Each management combination recommends 1 management action per biological phase. Annual management guidance specific to each management unit will be provided as one of these potential management combinations. Each management unit will receive the combination that the model has determined is most likely to achieve the greatest reduction in Phragmites at the lowest cost for that particular site. You will receive management guidance annually by mid-August on your web hub account. As a participant, you're encouraged to follow this data-driven management guidance, or at least use another of the 16 PAMF combinations, because those are what our predictive model is designed to learn from. So by using one of our management combinations, you will maximize your contribution to the collective learning process. However, you are free to implement any management actions that you choose, and we just ask that you report those actions on the PAMF Web Hub. Once you receive your management guidance, it's up to you to implement the management action based on your expertise and best practices. PAMF's role is not to provide guidance on how to do each management action, but rather to facilitate collective learning. However, if you need more instructions on how to implement each management action, there is a management actions details and descriptions document on the PAMF Web Hub, which describes some techniques and considerations for each management action included in PAMF. Here's an example of the kind of management guidance you can expect to receive. Your guidance will come as 1 optimal combination and several near optimal combinations. The number of near optimal combinations generally ranges between 0 and 4, depending on what the model predicts is going to be most effective and efficient for your management unit, and based on the restrictions you have set for which type of management actions you have the ability to implement. A history of your guidance from previous cycles, as well as your current management guidance, will be available on the PAMF Web Hub. Guidance is one of the main benefits to PAMF participants. As a participant, you receive data-driven guidance based on the model's most current understanding of Phragmites management. The guidance you receive in August will come as one optimal combination with several near optimal combinations. And that is going to look like one management action for each of the 3 biological phases of Phragmites. Deciding the best implementation technique is up to each participant. Resources are available to provide additional guidance on the PAMF web hub, and the PAMF staff is always available to answer any guidance-related questions. You can email us at pamf@glc.org. Patrick, are there any quick questions about guidance? We have a little bit more about guidance to cover after this too.
There are. We've got a question from Chris. How come guidance isn't more specific, like concentration of pesticide or technique of biomass removal?
Yeah, that's a really great question. We get asked that one pretty frequently. So if you are interested in kind of more implementation techniques, we do have resources available on the web hub, but we keep guidance as a really kind of broad choice for participants. We just say apply glyphosate during this biological phase instead of apply Roundup with this at this concentration with this surfactant and use this type of equipment, because as you could see from when we did our introductions in the chat, people who are enrolled in PAMF are really variable, and so is their experience. So we might have a private landowner or a homeowners association or even a golf course who has enrolled in PAMF, and they don't necessarily have the same sort of experience managing Phragmites that a federal agency who has enrolled a site in PAMF may have. So because of that, we're trying to make sure that guidance is really accessible to everyone. And so we leave the implementation choices up to each participant. But like I said, we do have resources available on different considerations and what we mean by each management action and kind of some guidance on how you can choose to implement that as well.
I would also add that the more detailed we get with the management actions, the sparser the data is, and it becomes harder and harder to update with new information. The more spread out the data points are over the model. So by having these broad categories, we are pretty sure to be able to be building off of what we already know, instead of dropping data points into empty regions where we don't really know what's happening yet.
Yeah, that's a really great point, Christine. And I'll add one more thing, that we are capturing all of that information when you submit your management reports to us as well. So even though we're not telling you what concentrations and what surfactants or what time of day you should apply them, you're going to give us information on your implementation techniques when you submit those management reports.
That's right. And when we have a lot of that information built up, we can always revisit the model. And if those instances or those details turn out to be important, then we can rebuild the model around them and have a more detailed model where we need it to be detailed.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have plans to kind of revisit this information on not necessarily annual basis, but kind of after we have enough data to kind of really analyze it and look at what's making the biggest impact. I think for the sake of time, we're going to save any other guidance questions for just a little bit later on. And I want to move on to something new that we've developed this year. So a lot of times, we have to make some planning decisions before August. And if you're receiving guidance in August and then you're expected to implement it, within a month or two after that, that might not be enough time. So we do have some additional options that I wanted to share with you. In order to accommodate as many participants as possible, PAMF has created a couple alternative guidance options. Alternative guidance is covered in Chapter 3 of the PAMF Participant Guide. Each August, PAMF participants receive effective and efficient Phragmites management guidance customized for each management unit enrolled in PAMF. This guidance is based on our most updated model learning and the management unit's current site conditions. However, this time frame may not be ideal for managers that need to make management planning decisions earlier in the year. To provide greater flexibility to using PAMF guidance to inform decision-making, PAMF is now offering 2 new options in addition to August guidance. The first being requesting mid-cycle forecasting guidance, and the second, implementing guidance after a lag year. While we're pleased to be able to offer these additional options, it is important to note that not all guidance is created equal. PAMF August guidance is based on the most up-to-date understanding of Phragmites management outcomes at the beginning of the subsequent cycle. This is the best option and should be implemented whenever possible. The next best option is requesting mid-cycle forecasting guidance, which anticipates in February what August optimal guidance might be. While mid-cycle forecasting guidance has more uncertainty than August guidance regarding the effectiveness of management actions, it incorporates more information than the third option, lag year guidance. Lag year guidance is simply the previous cycle's guidance applied to the next cycle, and should only be considered if you require more than 6 months of planning to implement PAMF guidance. Participants needing to utilize mid-cycle forecasting guidance or lag year guidance will continue to receive the best predictive guidance in August. If you do not anticipate being able to implement your August guidance due to timing and planning constraints, then requesting mid-cycle forecasting guidance is your next best option. Under this option, you can request a forecast of your next round of management guidance in February of each year. Management units are eligible to receive mid-cycle forecasting guidance if they were monitored the previous July and are currently being managed according to one of the 16 management combinations included in PAMF. Participants can submit mid-cycle forecasting guidance requests for eligible management units on the PAMF Web Hub. Requests must be submitted prior to January 7th in order to receive guidance by February 1st. Mid-cycle forecasting guidance is generated through the same model that provides guidance in August for each year and recommend the management combination that is most likely to be the optimal August guidance. PAMF makes this determination by predicting the chance of the occurrence of each invasion state following your current management actions. The third and least optimal option is to operate on a 1-year delay. To implement lag year guidance, you would need to monitor your management unit in July prior to the start of the next PAMF cycle. For this scenario, we'll refer to that as year 1. Save the August guidance you receive for year 2, and then in year 1, apply a PAMF combination of your choice. So if you applied rest or stressed, then you're most likely to have your management unit be in a similar state in year 2 as it was in year 1. After monitoring in July of year 2, you can carry out the management guidance you received in year 1. Following lag year guidance allows you a full year to plan your management actions, apply for funding, and bid for associated contracts. In order to receive the best management guidance that is specific to your management unit's current state of invasion, we recommend that you implement the guidance you receive in August each year whenever possible. However, when that guidance comes too late, then you can consider the other 2 options that I just previously described. If you have any questions or if you want to discuss the best options for your management unit, please contact us at pamf@glc.org. Okay, so just a kind of quick review of the guidance options. So the best option is always going to be implementing the guidance you receive in August, and there's a couple reasons for that. That is using the model's most up-to-date information and using all of that participant data from the previous cycle. So the model updates in August, and then we are able to generate that August guidance. So we're using a lot of good information from other participants, but we have a better understanding of what your current state of invasion is because you just monitored in July. So everyone is going to receive August guidance as long as you monitor your management units in July. If you want to receive mid-cycle forecasting guidance, this is kind of the second best alternative. You can do that by submitting a short report sometime before January 7th. That's going to be available on the PAMF Web Hub. It's not quite available yet because we don't want participants to request it at this point. We want them to at least take a couple management actions so you know which combination you're following next year. And as long as you request it by January 7th, you'll receive that guidance by February 1st. Then the final option, which is the least ideal, is implementing your August guidance 1 year out. So if you receive guidance this year, you'll wait until next August, and that gives you kind of that full year of planning. So just to kind of see where everyone stands, take a second and think about any limitations you might run into, especially planning limitations with your lining up your contractors, your funding limitations, and which type of guidance do you see yourself using? And I will mention this question has no wrong answers. All are great and all allow you to participate in PAMF. Patrick, what are most people saying?
We're getting mostly August guidance, but there is a couple mid-cycle forecasting guidance as well.
Great.
Oh, and a lag year.
Awesome. Yeah, all of these options are available because we want to make sure that everyone can participate to the best of their abilities. And we know August guidance doesn't work for everyone. So I think we have probably time for one quick question about alternative guidance. And if you do have other questions, go ahead and type them in the chat box because I'm going to take all of your other questions at the end. Any questions, Patrick?
We do have a question from Megan. What do I have to do if I would like to receive mid-cycle forecasting guidance?
Yeah, so that's a good question. It's not available yet on the PAMF Web Hub, but you'll go under your management unit. And if you have an account, you'll see that each management unit kind of has its own little home page. And there's going to be a link to requesting mid-cycle forecasting guidance. And then there's a short report that you'll fill out. And that tells us which management combination you're currently doing. And yes, you would like to receive management guidance, and you submit that. And then you'll receive that, as long as you submit it before January 7th, you'll receive the mid-cycle forecasting guidance on February 1st. Okay, so we're just going to move right ahead to management. So this is kind of the final step in the PAMF participant cycle. The fifth step in the PAMF participant cycle is managing Phragmites. After enrolling and monitoring your management unit, the PAMF model is able to provide your first round of management guidance. Once the guidance is received, you're able to begin managing. Phragmites management happens throughout the year, with one management action occurring in each biological phase, as shown in the cycle image. Management is covered in Chapter 3 of the PAMF Participant Guide. There are 10 management actions that PAMF's model is designed to learn from, which were exhaustively vetted by the technical working group. We recognize that these are not the only Phragmites management actions out there, but they are some of the most common. They're also the management actions from which PAMF's predictive model is designed to learn. So any recommendations you receive will be comprised of a combination of these 10 actions. Check out the Management Actions Details and Descriptions document on the PAMF Web Hub for more information of these 10 management actions. There are 3 management actions that involve herbicide applications, including glyphosate, imazapyr, and glyphosate plus, which is a combination of glyphosate and imazapyr as the active ingredient. Herbicides must be approved for aquatic use when applying them over water, and be sure that a licensed applicator is always used when applying herbicides. There are other considerations to take when applying herbicides, including the sensitivity of surrounding vegetation, land use, and restoration goals. Additional resources, such as an herbicide concentration quick guide, can be found on the PAMF Web Hub. There are 4 mechanical control management actions included in PAMF. Remove biomass involves removing Phragmites from the management unit manually. This can be achieved by cutting and removing Phragmites or even implementing a controlled burn. Mechanical and leave biomass involves mowing, cutting, or crushing all above ground Phragmites biomass within a management unit and then leaving it on site rather than removing it. Pre-flood clearing is really the same as either of the 2 aforementioned management actions, but can involve either removing or leaving biomass, but it's always followed with a flood event. Finally, Spading is being demonstrated by the woman on the right and involves taking a sharp shovel or spade and inserting it at the base of the stem at a 90-degree angle, cutting into and damaging the rhizome, and then removing any cut Phragmites from the site. Spading works by cutting off the oxygen supply to the plant and then suffocating the rhizome. Next, we have 2 hydrologic management actions. Cut underwater is defined as cutting Phragmites stems beneath the water level as close to the substrate as possible and at least 1 to 3 feet below the water surface. This can be done by hand using equipment like raspberry cane cutters, as shown in the upper right, or with large amphibious equipment, as shown in the left with the truck store. A second hydrological management action is a flood. In order for a management action to be classified as a flood in PAMF, water must cover all live Phragmites within the management unit for at least a full month. If a natural flood occurs that meets this criteria for a management action, rather than a controlled or intentional flood, this should still be submitted as a management report. If you've already applied a management action during the same phase a natural flood occurs, you can report both actions but use separate management reports. Lastly, we have rest, when no Phragmites management is done. It might seem like a silly action to recommend on its own, but rest can be an effective action as part of a 3-action combination. It's also useful if you're unable to manage your unit for any reason. You can just report rest as your management action, which still provides us with valuable information because inaction also influences the way that infestation changes over time. These 10 management actions have been grouped into 16 potential combinations that reflect what land managers are already doing. These combinations detail 1 management action for each biological phase. Annual management guidance specific to each management unit will be provided as one of these management combinations. Each management unit will receive the combination that the model determines is the most likely to achieve the greatest reduction in Phragmites at the lowest cost for that particular site. As you carry out these management actions, you'll need to submit a corresponding management report. Each management action that occurs during a phase should be reported. So if you plan to implement more than 1 management action per phase, we recommend that you enroll more than 1 management unit so that each management unit only has 1 management action and 1 management report per phase. However, it's all right to perform a single type of action multiple times during a phase, like spading multiple times during the growing phase. This would still only require 1 management report because only 1 type of action is being performed. However, if more than 1 management action occurs during a single phase, such as perhaps you applied glyphosate and then experienced an unexpected natural flood, you would need to fill out separate management reports for both of those actions. You will need to submit at least 1 management report for each phase, translocating, dormant, and growing, even if you let your management unit rest. The management reports are filled out and submitted on the PAMF Web Hub and ask questions like what management action you implemented, what technique you used when implementing it, and the cost you incurred. The questions are meant to give us enough information to evaluate each management action without it becoming a huge time burden for you. The management reports can be found on the PAMF Web Hub or in the appendix of the PAMF Participant Guide. This image here shows 1 image of the blank report that you can take out into the field with you that can help you gather the necessary information you need for when you go back and submit the report on the Web Hub. We recommend that you submit your management reports at the end of each management phase while things are still nice and fresh in your mind. However, you can submit all 3 reports at the end of the annual cycle, as long as it's before August 1st of each year. Reporting your management actions is meant to be a simple and quick process that should take less than 15 minutes per report. There are 10 management actions included in PAMF. Each management action has multiple implementation techniques possible, and the decision of how to implement is left up to each participant to decide. The 10 management actions are grouped into 16 management combinations that PAMF's model is designed to learn from. Participants are responsible for submitting 1 management report for each management action they take, which is ideally just 1 per biological phase. If 2 different actions should occur during 1 phase, for example, a glyphosate treatment followed by a natural flood event, each action requires a separate management report. However, if one action applied multiple times during a phase or is applied multiple times during a phase, so for example, it took multiple days to spade an entire management unit, only one report is required for that phase. There are resources available on the PAMF Web Hub to help participants make implementation decisions. And as always, the PAMF staff is available to answer any and all management questions. You can reach us at pamf@glc.org. So that kind of completes the PAMF participant cycle. It ends with implementing management action. So just kind of as some quick reminders, one management action should be ideally implemented per biological phase. And all of the recommendations that you're going to get are going to come of one of those 16 management combinations. And each combination or each action that you take, so one of those 3 different management actions that's a part of the 16 combinations requires its own management report that you can submit on the Web Hub. While not all of the reports are due until August 1st, it's usually easier to submit the management reports after you've taken that action. So you can remember, oh, what concentration did I use, or what dates did I go out and spade, and that might make it a little easier on you. And don't worry, I send plenty of reminders throughout the year to help you keep on track. We do have lots of resources available on the Web Hub. That management actions, details, and descriptions document is particularly useful. There's also a video that kind of walks you through the management report. It looks quite long if you look at the printed version or the version that's in the appendix of the PAMF participant guide, but you only answer the questions that are specific to the action that you took. I think this is GLPC website here, sorry for that. There's also, if you click on the management and then management techniques tab, there's some other implementation technique guidance there. And again, you can always reach out to us. We do have a quick knowledge check. I applied glyphosate to my management unit many times during the growing phase. What's the correct way to report my management actions to PAMF? So A is you create a new management report every time you apply glyphosate during the growing phase. B is you submit just one management report that documents the total volume of glyphosate you use, the concentration, and how many times you applied it. Or C is you don't submit any report at all because you might have done something wrong. Patrick, what do people think?
We're getting mostly Bs.
Okay, great. That's right. So if you have different management actions during one phase, so maybe you apply glyphosate treatment and then there's a mow or something like that during one phase, then you submit 2 different reports. If you apply one action multiple times, that only requires 1 report.
If you do end up submitting multiple reports for the same action, don't worry about it. We have that taken care of on our end too. So A, while it's maybe not the most efficient for you, is also correct.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Christine. So if you do if you do go ahead and you submit multiple management reports, let me go back to A, for each time that you apply a treatment, that's okay. We can combine those on our end. So I like to ask this question just to see kind of what people have done in the past. What combinations have you implemented? And you can just enter 1 through 16 in the chat box. And even if you've never managed before, you have done one of these. Yes, Catherine's got it, 16. Everyone's done 16, which is rest, do nothing. But it looks like we do have some variety. 2, 9, 14. Yeah, that's great. These combinations are really meant to reflect what participants or what Phragmites managers are doing. So I do have a couple more slides, so we're just going to hold off any questions to the end. If you do have questions, go ahead and type them in the chat box and I will get to them. So I just want to walk through some of the resources that we have available to help you participate in PAMF. The PAMF participant guide that I mentioned in the beginning, that's kind of the main resource for PAMF. So everything that you need should be available in written forms. But we also have different formats. So we have those how-to videos that I showed. We also have guidance on how to use the vernier calipers, how to use that View Ranger app that we had mentioned, how to build your quadrat. All of those things can be available on the PAMF Web Hub under the Resources tab. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention one of our new and really exciting resources that we developed, the annual management unit summaries that are going to go out annually to each management unit enrolled in PAMF. So over the winter, our staff was working on a way to provide an easy way for participants to track progress as they enroll management units into the program. And so this resulted in this annual management unit summary document. Each year, participants submit data to us, and then these documents summarize that data and provide a visualization of the changes in each management unit. So each management unit is going to receive its own customized document containing figures that indicate changes in percent establishment and stem density over time, and a detailed summarization of the most recent cycles management actions and costs if submitted, and record all of the previous management actions that a participant has taken. So we actually just sent those out earlier this month, but normally they're going to go out right after guidance in August. These documents are meant as an additional resource to help everyone who's participating track their management efforts over time. And they can be used to keep track of your management efforts just for kind of your own personal record, help keep track for your organizational records, or even be provided to funders as part of your reporting requirements. We have been in contact with Sobel, and I know some of you are on Sobel grants right now, and this is something that they are considering including as part of their reporting requirements if you have enrolled in PAMF. Whenever you enroll a management unit in PAMF, you're going to be given the ability, or you're going to be asked if you want to give permission to have your management unit viewable on the Who's PAMFing tab. And so this tab shows you all other management units enrolled in PAMF along with managers' contact information. And so we encourage you to kind of explore this resource and find other managers in your area and connect with them, because you might be able to provide shared experiences or even, manage more collectively on a smaller scale. If you need a PAMF kit and you don't already have one, we can provide them to you for free. These are going to include a bag and the 1/4 meter squared quadrat and the vernier calipers, along with a little bit of PAMF swag just for fun. You can send an email to us at pamf@glc.org with your mailing address. So as we're wrapping up now, I just kind of wanted to walk through quickly. You're ready to join. What do you do now? So the first thing you should do is create an account on the PAMF Web Hub. And then enrollment happens any time of year. So whenever you're ready, you can go out and map your management unit and fill out the enrollment questionnaire on the PAMF Web Hub. This is kind of an image of what that enrollment questionnaire looks like. Then you can, don't forget, you can email me to request one of those PAMF kits, and then you'll go out in July and you'll conduct the standardized monitoring procedures and submit all of that data to the Web Hub by August 1st. And then you'll receive guidance by mid-August. And this is just an example of what one participant received last year for their 3 management units as guidance. And then you're ready to start managing, and you can implement one management action during the translocating, growing, and dormant phases of Phragmites. And then report all of those to the Web Hub by August 1st. And then start all over again with monitoring the next year. So before we take any questions, I just want to quickly review the benefits of joining PAMF. PAMF allows everyone to manage Phragmites pretty much as they normally would, but with this added benefit of regional learning. So PAMF is specifically designed to learn from what combinations and orders of treatments are best given specific levels of Phragmites infestations at your management unit. Through participant reporting, we collect information that not only informs PAMF and everyone who's participating, but also can inform the Great Lakes Phragmites Collaborative with information that's been pretty difficult to assemble historically, such as the types of equipment people are using or the exact timing of different management actions. So you can think of this as kind of succession planning, where we're finally able to combine and store all of this collective experience managing Phragmites, so we can stop this trial and error approach to management and start progressing regionally. Really like to thank everyone who joined today and stuck around to the end. We can go ahead and kind of take questions. I know we're 2 minutes after noon at this point, but we'll stick around until there's no more questions. And if you need to go to another meeting or you need to jump off, don't worry, all of your questions will be available on that online recording as well. So Patrick, do we have any questions?
We do. We can work off our backlog of questions here. So
Perfect.
we have a question about if there are any biocontrols currently available to control Phragmites.
Yeah, that's a good question. So we don't have any biocontrol built into PAMF, and there's kind of a couple of reasons for that. One, we don't have any biocontrol options that are really widely available, but also they don't necessarily fit within our current learning structure and how the model is designed to learn. I'm not sure, Christine, do you think that would be something we could include in the future?
Yeah, it certainly is, as long as there's some information on it. Yeah, there's no reason that we couldn't do that once it's developed.
Yeah, that's a good question. So at this time, no, there's not anything, but we also don't have any widely implemented biocontrol techniques that we could implement consistently throughout the basin.
All right, we've got a question from Andrea. Are there any reported cases of Phragmites developing resistance to glyphosate after multiple applications?
Yeah, that's a good question. Most of what we see when Phragmites has had different herbicide treatments, especially when they're rather strong, is we'll see kind of this witch's brooming kind of last ditch effort for the rhizomes to shoot up as many stems as they can. It kind of looks like a weird little clump of grass that never gets more than maybe 6 inches tall. And that's kind of the main thing that we see with glyphosate treatment, or even sometimes with a treatment of imazapyr. I know that there's cases of other plants growing resistant to glyphosate, but I am not sure if we've seen that in Phragmites.
All right, and we have a question about that many management units have hydrological gradients that limit the application of herbicide to one portion of it. And there's aquatic limitations in Canada. How should this be approached, as splitting into multiple management units would result in inaccurate boundaries with changing water levels each year?
Yeah, that's a really great question. That's a tricky one too. So water levels are definitely changing. We've seen quite a few PAMF sites, especially on the coasts, that were, historically dry, but then had become completely flooded and inundated with water. And so obviously your management capabilities are changing, especially, if you're in Ontario and you had a previously dry site that was once in it, or that's now inundated with water. So I think there's kind of a couple of approaches that you could take. So the boundaries aren't changing over time to your management unit, but the Phragmites is going to reduce as you manage. So you can try to be more conservative and enroll the drier portion that you think is going to stay drier, but not enroll your management unit, not split that management unit up into the full area that you're managing. I wish I could draw this out for you. So if you had imagine you have like a square management unit and a quarter of it is wetted. Instead of splitting that square kind of in half, you could make 1/4 of that management, 1/4 of that area of management unit and another quarter a management unit, and kind of leave that area in between as not enrolled in PAMF at all. In that way, you can be a little bit more sure that your management capabilities are going to be remaining consistent. And then you can apply that guidance out that you receive for each of those management units to that middle area based on what your capabilities are and where the water level is. Another way you could do this is if you enroll a site and the water levels drastically change and your capabilities drastically change, you might have to enroll another management unit within that same area and just select different capabilities. Hopefully that makes sense.
All right, we have another question from Leslie. Please, could you mention the mapping app that we recommended?
Oh yeah, okay, so View Ranger is the app. We have instructions in the back of the PAMF participant guide. There's lots of ways to create a GPX file, but the View Ranger app seems to have all of the capabilities we need and is free and is available to download on both Android and Apple or iOS devices. So that's kind of why we have instructions for that. The mapping capabilities on it are pretty good. There's usually about, I don't know, 5 to 10 meters of accuracy in that. So your polygon might kind of have some weird zigzags, but that's okay as long as you kind of know where those boundaries are over time. So again, that's available in one of the appendices of the PAMF participant guide, and you can find instructions there.
All right, we have a question from Jill. After successful clearing of Phragmites, would you advise that native species be planted after?
Yeah, that's great. And that's kind of something that we've considered in PAMF, but there's so many different reasons that people manage. So a lot of, people are managing to restore an area it's more of a native state, but others are managing just to clear the area and they just want to put, a shorter grass in, especially if you have, a beach setting or if you have a right of way where it might not benefit our use or recreation of the area to be restored to a more natural state, if that makes sense. But I think it's always recommended to, if you want to restore an area, if you want to keep out other kind of non-native species, if you want to just have reed canary grass move in, that you do some sort of planting effort. At this time, we don't have any real way to capture that in PAMF, but you can always put that in your notes section when you submit your monitoring or management reports. And there are some resources available at greatlakesphragmites.net that go over some restoration techniques. Good questions.
All right, are there any native species that we would recommend for restoration and outcompeting Phragmites?
Yeah, I think that's really going to depend on your goal. There is a native variety of Phragmites to North America, but actually there's a couple native species. And those occupy the similar habitats. There's also native and invasive cattail or typha species as well. So I think it's really going to depend on what the goal is for your site. As far as outcompeting Phragmites, that's a little bit trickier. Usually I just see reed canary grass and invasive typha trying to compete with Phragmites if there's no other planting effort.
All right, and we have a question from Logan. Are there any programs like this on the East Coast, or do we plan on expanding?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So we've actually, I think it was last year, we gave a presentation out in California, and we're trying to work with other partners out there to kind of expand this. It's not something that we necessarily have funding for at the moment, so it requires funding and kind of an identified need. But we'd be happy to provide all of the information that we have to help another program get started, including our modeling data, our modeling code, all of kind of the foundational work that we've done. So at this time, no. And the reason that we can't have a broader effort is we're trying to, and we keep this at this Great Lakes or regional scale, is that we know that there's some factors included, or there's some, we're trying to limit the variability of the site conditions. So if we go out to Utah and, we're in the Great Salt Lake, that might be a completely different ecosystem than what we're experiencing in our coastal areas in our Great Lakes states and provinces. So that's kind of the reason that we have limited it at this time to the Great Lakes.
All right, are there any other questions? We'll take a moment to see if anyone else has any last questions here.
And you can always email us at pamf@glc.org, and my email is sama@glc.org. So feel free to reach out anytime.
All right, thank you everyone for all your great questions today and for your attention.
Yeah, thanks so much. And again, please feel free to contact us. And if you want any of the resources that are available on the PAMF Web Hub, just go ahead and create an account. It's free. It just requires a set of credentials, just like any other account at pamfportal.net. And you'll have access to all of these great resources that we mentioned today. And yes, I'll reiterate, have a great field season, everyone. Stay safe out there and good luck managing Phragmites.